The studio sat at the edge of a narrow road winding through the Berkshire Mountains, a weathered old barn converted into a workspace. From its wide, dust-streaked windows, the valley below rolled out in a quilt of deep green forests, golden fields, and meandering streams. It was beautiful country, the kind that made people pull over just to breathe it in. But for Daniel Mercer, beauty alone wasn't enough to pay the bills. He had lived and painted here for 7 years, selling his landscapes at galleries and summer art fairs. He'd had good years and lean years, but lately, the lean years had taken over. Tourists loved his work, but fewer of them were buying. The small galleries that once carried his paintings were struggling, and some had closed altogether. 2 weeks ago, his landlord, an old friend who had once been flexible, had given him a firm deadline. "I can't keep waiting," Danny had said, not unkindly. "If you don't have the back rent by the end of the month, I'll have to find someone who can." Daniel understood. He had no hard feelings, only a growing sense of dread. With just days left, he had exhausted every option, reaching out to past buyers, offering discounts, even considering a temporary job. Nothing had panned out. This morning, he sat before a blank canvas for hours, willing himself to create something that might change his fortune. But his mind was clouded with worry. His brush hovered, hesitant, then fell. The spark was gone. With a frustrated sigh, he pushed away from the easel and grabbed his coat. Maybe a walk would clear his head. The mountain path was soft with fallen leaves, the air crisp with the scent of pine. Daniel moved slowly, his boots scuffing against the dirt. He had taken this trail countless times before, but today he barely noticed the towering oaks or the way the afternoon light dappled the ground. The thought of leaving the Berkshires gnawed at him. He had built a life here, found inspiration in these hills. The idea of packing up and starting over somewhere new, somewhere cheaper, maybe a city where he could pick up commercial work, made his chest tighten. But what choice did he have? Lost in thought, he nearly missed the narrow deer path branching off to the right. Something about it caught his eye. Maybe it was the way the light slanted through the trees, illuminating the path like an invitation. On impulse, he followed it. It led him deeper into the woods, through a stand of birch trees so white that they looked like ghosts in the fading light. The ground sloped upward, and as he climbed, the trees thinned until he emerged onto a rocky outcrop, and there, spread out before him, was a view so breathtaking it stopped him in his tracks. The valley stretched endlessly, bathed in a golden glow of late afternoon. A river carved a silver ribbon through the fields, and beyond it, the mountains rose in layers of deep blue and violet. Clouds drifted low, their edges tinged with the last warmth of the sun. It was a scene that felt untouched by time, something out of a dream. Daniel's heart pounded, not with fear, but with something he hadn't felt in a long time: inspiration. He was in the studio before dawn the next morning, brush in hand. His usual hesitation was gone. The image of the valley was burned into his mind, and the paint seemed to flow effortlessly. He worked in bold strokes, letting the colors bleed into each other like memory and light. The sky, a blend of fire and mist. The river, a glinting path leading to something unseen. He painted with a purpose he hadn't felt in years, as if the landscape itself was urging him on. For 3 days, he barely stopped to eat or sleep. He painted feverishly, chasing the vision he had seen on the mountaintop. And when at last he stepped back, exhaustion weighing on him, he knew this was the best thing he had ever created. He titled it The Valley Eternal. With no time to waste, he reached out to a gallery owner in Stockbridge who had always believed in his work. "You need to see this," Daniel told her over the phone, his voice trembling with something that wasn't quite desperation. She agreed to stop by that evening. When she arrived, she stood in silence before the painting for a long time. "This is different," she murmured finally. "There's something alive in it." She turned to him, eyes sharp with excitement. "Let me take it. I think I know the right buyer." By the end of the week, the painting had sold. Not just sold. The Valley Eternal had sparked a bidding war among collectors, driving the price higher than anything Daniel had ever imagined. The final buyer, a well-known patron of the arts, had insisted on meeting him in person, offering congratulations and asking what he would paint next. The money was more than enough to cover the rent and then some, but what mattered more was what it meant. He wasn't finished here. His work still had something to say. Days later, Daniel hiked back to the mountaintop. The valley lay before him, unchanged, yet different. He sat on a rock, sketchbook in hand, letting the wind ruffle the pages. He thought about how close he had come to losing all of this, his home, his purpose. And yet in his darkest moment, the mountains had given him a gift. Maybe that was what art really was, not just capturing beauty, but finding it when you needed it most. With a deep breath, he turned to a fresh page and began to draw. Thanks for tuning in to Fireside Stories. For even more stories, remember to like and subscribe. And we'll see you the next time that we all gather around the fire.